The wind howls a mournful tune tonight. It whistles through the weathered headstones, each one a story whispered to eternity. I am old, older than these gnarled oaks that cast long fingers of shadow across the forgotten graves. 99 years I've walked among them, tending the earth, listening to their silent tales. But some stories claw their way out from beneath the ground, demanding to be heard. Tales soaked in shadow, thick with dread. This is one of those tales. 13 years old, an age teetering between childish naivety and the burgeoning cruelty of adolescence. At Willow Creek Middle School, that cruelty found its embodiment in young Jessica Miller. A pretty girl, yes, with cascading blonde hair and eyes like chipped blue ice, but beauty, as they say, is only skin deep. Beneath the surface, Jessica the bully was a viper, her tongue sharp as a razor, her heart colder than the tombstones I tend. Elara, with her strange clothes and quiet demeanour, became Jessica's favourite target. Every whisper, every snide remark, every cruel prank was a stone cast upon the placid surface of a dark and fathomless lake. Jessica and her posse mocked Elara's clothes, her accent, even the intricate braids her grandmother wove into her hair. They tripped her in the hallways, scribbled insults on her locker, and stole her belongings, their laughter echoing through the school corridors like the cackling of crows. Unbeknownst to Jessica, Elara's grandmother, a woman steeped in the ancient traditions of voodoo, had foreseen the torment her granddaughter would face. She'd warned Elara, told her to be wary of those who sought to cause harm, for their own darkness would consume them. And so Elara endured, her silence a mask, her eyes reflecting a wisdom that Jessica, blinded by her own malice, could not comprehend. One day, Jessica, fueled by a particularly malicious prank that left Elara in tears, crossed a line. She snatched the necklace Elara always wore, a simple cord with a small carved bone pendant, a gift from her grandmother. "What's this voodoo trash?" Jessica sneered, holding it aloft. Elara's eyes, usually downcast, snapped up, flashing with a power that startled even Jessica. "Give it back," she whispered, her voice low and dangerous. "You don't know what you're playing with." Jessica laughed, a shrill, unpleasant sound, and tossed the necklace back to Elara, a triumphant smirk on her face. But as Elara clutched the necklace to her chest, her eyes held a chilling promise. That night, Jessica's dreams were plagued by nightmares. She found herself running through the endless corridors of Willow Creek Middle, the air thick with the smell of mildew and fear. A figure pursued her, a hulking silhouette of a man with eyes that glowed red in the darkness. Its breath rasped on the back of her neck as she ran, a cold and fetid gust that sent shivers down her spine. The figure gained on her, its long, sharp fingers reaching out, scraping against the walls, leaving trails of fire in their wake. Jessica stumbled, her breath catching in her throat, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drumbeat of doom. Closer he came, the glow of his eyes intensifying, his rasping breath filling her ears, her mind. She could feel his heat, smell the stench of decay, taste the fear that clung to her like cobwebs. His hand closed around her ankle, then a sharp, piercing pain on her thighs. He had stabbed her legs, his grip like a vice. Jessica woke with a gasp, bathed in sweat, her heart hammering against her ribs. The nightmare clung to her like a shroud, its icy fingers still tracing patterns of fear across her skin. But as she tried to throw off the covers, to escape the lingering terror that clung to her, she realized something was terribly wrong. Her legs, they wouldn't move. Panic, raw and consuming, surged through her. She thrashed against the sheets, her voice a strangled cry in the stillness of her room. "Mom, Dad, help me!" Her parents rushed in, their faces etched with concern, but as they tried to calm her, to soothe her terror, Jessica could only stare at her legs, her eyes wide with a primal fear that transcended the realm of nightmares and seeped into the waking world. She was trapped, her legs like lead weights, her body a prison of flesh and bone. The silence of her limbs was more terrifying than any scream. It was the silence of paralysis, of a fate worse than any nightmare she could have conjured. Doctors were called, their faces grim as they poked and prodded, their voices a low murmur of medical jargon that Jessica couldn't decipher. They ran tests, ordered scans, their brows furrowed in confusion. Jessica's parents, their faces etched with worry and fear, clung to each other, their hope dwindling with every negative test result, every dismissive shrug from the specialists. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Jessica remained trapped within her own body, her legs refusing to respond to her will. The doctors were baffled. They'd never encountered anything like it. There was no physical reason for her paralysis, no nerve damage, no spinal injury, no explanation within the realm of their medical textbooks. They muttered about psychosomatic illness, about the power of the mind to manifest physical ailments, but their words rang hollow, their eyes betraying their uncertainty, their fear. Finally, after months of agonizing uncertainty, Jessica was discharged. There was nothing more they could do. The doctors, defeated, sent her home with a wheelchair and a prescription for physical therapy, their voices laced with the pity that Jessica found more unbearable than the paralysis itself. She returned to Willow Creek Middle, but the halls that had once echoed with her laughter now seemed to whisper her shame. The stares, the whispers, the pity in the eyes of her former friends. It was a constant reminder of her fall from grace, her sudden and inexplicable descent into disability. She was no longer Jessica Miller, the queen bee, the heartbreaker, the girl who held court in the hallways of Willow Creek Middle. She was Jessica Miller, the girl in the wheelchair, the girl who couldn't even stand on her own 2 feet. And then she saw her, Elara, standing by her locker, her eyes dark and knowing. Their eyes met, and in that instant, Jessica knew. Elara didn't need to say a word. Her silence spoke volumes, her eyes reflecting a chilling truth that sent shivers down Jessica's spine. This was her doing. The paralysis, the wheelchair, the endless whispers, it was all Elara's revenge. 15 years have passed since that day. Jessica still can't walk. The doctors eventually stopped searching for a medical explanation, resigning themselves to the baffling truth that her paralysis had no physical cause. Some say it was psychosomatic, a manifestation of her own guilt and fear. Others whisper of curses and voodoo, of ancient powers best left undisturbed. But I know the truth. I see it in the shadows that cling to Jessica, in the haunted look in her eyes, in the way she flinches at every creak of a floorboard, every rustle of leaves. Elara's warning echoes through the years, a constant reminder of the price of cruelty, of the darkness that can be unleashed when we mistake silence for weakness. The wind howls its mournful tune, carrying with it the whispers of the graveyard, the tales of retribution and regret. And I, the old caretaker of these forgotten souls, am left to ponder the weight of Elara's revenge, a chilling reminder that some wounds, like some curses, are destined to linger long after the flesh has turned to dust.